The Southern Illinois Grand Detour, half-mile track located not 50 miles away from Quincy. We've had some fantastic battles towards the front end of the field and also some very fantastic wrecks here in the past. We've had a wreck fest a couple of years ago when we almost had 20 yellows. But aside from that, it's a very good racetrack with progressive banking. Hopefully the new engine rules next year, which were announced, which will include a V8 turbocharger, will clean up the racing here next season. That's the hope anyway. Not too much happened in the qualifying race. It was a fairly tame race, only 2 yellows in 50 laps. There have been many times during an actual race here that we've had as many as 8 yellows in 50 laps. As far as the silly season is concerned, things have begun to kick off. The 13 teams that will compete full-time were announced, and also the creation of the Independence Trophy for all of the independent teams. And we'll go into more detail on that in the mid-season podcast. And speaking of which, Dan, over to you. Thank you very much, Lance. The clutch pole award goes to Scout Stoidler in car number 26. The second time this season he's been on the pole. Leon Kennison on the outside of the front row, then Leonard Roderick and Damian Snyder as they come to the green flag. Stoidler leads the field through the first turn, but Roderick is going to sweep in a second. In car number 21, starting 7th, is George Dennis, the replacement driver for Paul Lyons after Lyons was sacked before Indianapolis. And there's Dennis already roughing up Alexis Rainsford in the 27 car. Problems for Dan Klesel on the end of the first lap as he brings the number 25 Nemoto down into the pits. Allie Riggs was booted out of the 29 car prior to this race, and Curtis Darcy stepped into this car, qualified out on the pole for the qualifying race, and qualified the 29 car. First caution of the race fell on lap 3. This is the 4th year in a row we've had a shunt within the first 5 laps. We are focused on Lauren Roth. Tony Durbin and Joseph Howard get together, sending Roth into the wall, and Roth rides the wall. Leon Kennison gets a piece, Ryan Araki, Lewis Kingston, and Zelda Ashby. Here's a closer look. It looks like Howard may have had some kind of problem, and Durbin gets into the back of him. Ashby and Kingston both involved, and you see Ryan Araki hammers the side of the 84. It does look like the 17 car slowed down. Craig Yonser in car number 5 led in the restart, and all the lap cars came flying past him on the inside. All those cars, of course, went a lap down because they hit the pits at some point or another. You can see that Yonser's car not quite up to speed. Here's David Krikorian in car number 9, getting around 2nd place Drew Wiseman, and 1st place Craig Yonser in one fell swoop. This is Krikorian's 1-year anniversary in the Master Cup Series, as last year at this time, he was replacing Curtis Darcy for his debut. You probably see those yellow lights on the side, and that means another caution. Ryan Araki, Alexis Rainsford, Zach Duff, and Cyrus Laterza figure out that 4-wide doesn't work, and Zach Duff pays the price for it, so does Milano Rossini and Ross Peterson. A pretty hard impact sends the 28 and 90 cars out of the race pretty early on in the going. Looks like Rainsford and Laterza may have gotten together with Duff, and Duff goes around, hard impact into the passenger side by Milano Rossini into Zach Duff. The 90 and the 28 cars would be done for the day. Alan Hodges led on the restart, but it was a very quick restart because, guess what? Another caution on lap 14. This actually happened right on the restart. A big bungle up under the yellow flags put Brian Sendak into the wall in the 40 car. Sendak not too pleased with that, and he was even less pleased with that. Heavy hit from Dan Klesel sends Sendak into the fence. Gets some air. Here's on board Dan Klesel. There's Sendak just sitting there, and Klesel makes very little attempt to slow down at all. Alexis Rainsford in the 27 car led on the restart, everyone electing to pit for fuel, and Rainsford made the quickest stop. You see Mike Whitmore, a lap car, trying to make up some ground. Another quick restart because caution 4 on lap 22 was caused by Ryan Araki pulling out in front of most of the field, spins into Mike Whitmore, and creates a big pile-up. Arto Kekkonen over the wall. That's the 3rd year in a row we've had someone go over the wall at one part or another this track. There's Araki into the side of Mike Whitmore, spins in front of everybody. McGlynn is in it, Scott Bates, David Krikorian, Chris Allen, Gary Edwards, Curtis Darcy in the 29, Arto Kekkonen, Danny Savin. Here's Kekkonen going over the wall. There's Julian Asova almost joining him. Dale Roswell involved. Many cars involved due to Ryan Araki apparently having a brain fart. That's the only way I can imagine that this would have happened. Oh my goodness, there's Araki. There's Danny Savin getting into it. Cyrus Laterza almost collected. See Scott Bates, there's Dale Roswell going around. Tony Durbin dives in too low, spins himself out trying to avoid this mess. Rachel Rainsford appears to have done the same. Speaking of Rachel Rainsford, she led the field coming to the green next time by. This, however, was another very short-lived restart because there was, guess what, another yellow. Scott Bates in the 88 and Chris Johans in the 22 are going to start this one. Johans gets into the side of Scott Bates, and they both slow down immensely, and this brings out a yellow flag prematurely. Damian Snyder in the 11 car leads the field to the restart. There's a lot of lap cars on the inside line, and they're holding up everyone else. Snyder is able to get a good enough restart and clear most of them. Caution 6 on lap 38, right after the restart, involving Tony Durbin in the 33 and Leonard Roderick in the 4. Roderick bounces off Danny Savin's car, gets Tony Durbin into the wall. Marcus Leonard involved in this one. There's Nasova going around the top. Looks like this one only involves Tony Durbin and Marcus Leonard. Stephanie McGlynn was the leader out in the restart, and you can tell how much slower she was than everyone else. Scott Stoyler, the last car on the lead lap, as every lapped car and their dog goes right past Stephanie McGlynn, holding up all the leaders and allowing them to get back on the lead lap because caution 7 flew on lap 42. David Krikorian was trying to pass Stephanie McGlynn for the lead. McGlynn hooks Krikorian, puts him into the wall, and Marcus Leonard gets involved. Big mess further down the track. Marcus Leonard in the 02 car is going to take a pretty wild ride here. He hits the wall, Danny Savin hits him, Leonard hits a snag of the wall, and he goes flying several barrel rolls for Marcus Leonard in the 02. Ironically enough, Marcus Leonard was shouting for joy while doing that little barrel roll. We're going to see this again. Leonard into the wall. It's good to see someone with such high spirits as Leonard to enjoy rolling down the track about 10 times and climbing out of the car. No injuries so far, but a lot of injured race cars. Anthony Evans in the 10 leads the field to the green. He hasn't really been having the best of seasons, and he's going to need these bonus points to raise his confidence more than anything else. Caution 8 on lap 48. Danny Savin hits the wall. Ross Peterson goes a little low, gets into Scott Stoyler, then back up into Danny Savin in the 91 car. Stephanie McGlynn hammers in there, and Tony Durbin in the 33 does as well. Looks like Durbin just a little unlucky, committed to the outside, and Durbin goes around and out of the race. Leonard Roderick in car number 4 leads the field to the green. Craig Janser's up to second. They're already almost wrecking back there. That's something we're not unused to here. Roderick a little too high. He hits the wall. Alexis Rainsford dives low to make the pass for the lead. Stuart Sandoval in the 77 racing for the lead, I believe, as well. Sandoval is racing for the lead, correction. And here he comes under Leonard Roderick to dive in. Whoa! And Roderick and Gary Edwards almost make contact there. They do make contact, but almost spin out. Caution 9 on lap 53. However, this is for something totally different. It's been a quiet day in Craig Janser's world. He's been minding his own business, cruising around the racetrack, when all of a sudden Julian Nasova and Mike Whitmore come to ruin his day, spinning the 5 car down the racetrack. They have another look at this. Nasova looks like the car does sort of lose control, or she comes up to block Mike Whitmore. Either way, the end result is Craig Janser going for a little bit of a spin. Alan Hodges in the 13 car leads the field on the restart. Scott Stoyler in second, and Scott Bates in third. The two Hodges-Walter teammates of Hodges and Stoidler pull away from Bates a little bit. As you see, there's a big cluster in the back. Not too many cars left in the race, as you can probably tell by now. Hodges, however, scrapes the wall a little bit, and the lapped car of Arto Kakkonen does impede Scott Stoidler a little bit, but Stoidler dives to the bottom and assumes first place anyway. Behind Stoidler is team owner Alan Hodges and Scott Bates in the 88, who is keeping up with them. Caution 10 flew on lap 64. We're not even in half distance yet. Julian Nasova and Alexis Rainsford are going to be going 4 wide when all of a sudden Rachel Rainsford turns Cyrus Laterza into the back of the 1 car. Nasova goes around. Danny Savin gets a piece. Craig Janser in another mess. He goes for a bit of a ride along with Chris Johans on the 22. Drew Eisenman in the 31 hammers Cyrus Laterza. Anthony Evans leads on the restart with Tom Delgado in the 67 car right behind him. Leonard Roderick is off the lead lap due to a pit stop he made early under the yellow flag. Anthony Evans stayed out. Tom Delgado in second. Roderick is pulling away a little bit from Evans as he is trying to make up a lap back, hoping for a quick caution, which actually is a pretty realistic hope, knowing how this race has gone. Alexis Rainsford and Scott Stoidler scrap for second right behind Evans and Roderick. Rainsford makes a dive to the bottom. Stoidler scrapes the wall. Rainsford keeps on going, but Stoidler scraping the wall brings out a caution flag. I think it's safe to say that after this yellow, the trip back home for Hodges Walter Racing is going to be a little bit awkward, because all three of their cars get together and they all go for a little spin. Alan Hodges, Scott Stoyler goes over, Rachel Rainsford hammers into Scott Stoyler. Those two already are not too fond of each other, but Stoyler scrapes the wall. Mike Whitmore runs too wide, gets into Stoyler, and spins his team owner Alan Hodges around. Now, I don't know if Mike Whitmore is trying to re-sign with that team or not, but spinning out your car owner is probably not the best way to get re-signed for a team, that's for sure. Here's Leon Keniston's look. Rachel Rainsford doesn't even attempt to slow down, hammers into the 26 car. Rainsford and Stoyler both go out, Rachel Rainsford, that is. Keniston continues on his merry little way. Alan Hodges restarts as the race leader with Leonid Roderick making up that lap and Alexis Rainsford in third. And you can see how much faster the outside line is from the inside line. These cars, well, they're the only cars to not have serious damage. Roderick almost gets into Hodges and turns him around. Hodges saves the car. Roderick driving very aggressively today. Here's the battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th between Stuart Sandoval, Scott Bates, and Tom Delgado. Also a lot of hard racing back here with Bates and Delgado. Very hard racers, but also very, very fair to each other. Bates and Delgado scrapping for a top 5 position. Bates runs a little wide, and Bates into the wall as Mike Whitmore makes a pass on him, as does Stuart Sandoval. Bates drops back. There's an incident on lap 81, which surprisingly doesn't bring out a yellow flag. 4 wide here, Danny Savin turns around Leon Keniston. I'm pretty sure they didn't bring out the yellow flag because the crowd at this point was getting a little sick of the caution flags here. Quite frankly, we were in the booth as well. Alexis Rainsford, in the meantime, is beginning to pull out a bit of a lead. Behind Alexis Rainsford, you can see Leonid Roderick and Tom Delgado scraping for second, and also Alan Hodges as well. Roderick losing a bit of ground there. Rainsford making a great run so far, and Roderick turns around, and that is, you guessed it, another yellow. Lap 99. If you were watching the last shot, then you've already seen this one. Leonid Roderick pushes up the track, hits Tom Delgado, and spins around, and nobody hits him. Roderick continues on his merry little way. Tom Delgado leads on the restart after his pit stop, and repairs took shorter time than everyone else's. And he already gaps the field by a little bit. Car number 67 having a fantastic run so far. Mike Whitmore running in second. It's going to get passed by Scott Bates on the inside. Scott Bates having a fantastic run so far. Scott Bates, one of the older drivers in the series. Mike Whitmore's car gets loose, hits the wall. Here comes Alexis Rainsford. Here comes Alan Hodges. And Leonid Roderick. Mike Whitmore losing many positions. Roderick catches up to Tom Delgado, dives on the inside, and gets around Delgado. By the way, is this a green flag run I'm seeing? Anyway, Delgado hits the wall, and Hodges goes right by him. And here's on board Alexis Rainsford getting around Tom Delgado. The 67 car apparently not as fast on long runs as we expected earlier. Leonid Roderick in the 4 car begins to pull away, and Alexis Rainsford begins to give chase. You can see Rainsford is slowly reeling in Leonid Roderick, but Leonid Roderick is very quickly reeling in some lap traffic, and that could be crucial. However, there is much room to pass here. Roderick catches up to Chris Johans, dispatches the former Arla champion without any problem at all, and leaving him for Alexis Rainsford to deal with. Having a fairly quiet run in 3rd place is Alan Hodges in car number 13. However, incidents like that with him scraping the wall slow him down in his chase of Alexis Rainsford. And right behind Alan Hodges sits Tom Delgado, who is also having episodes with the wall. Now, here comes Leonid Roderick upon 2 lapped cars at the same time. Arto Kekkonen and his teammate, and Stuart Sandoval, who is not his teammate. Roderick runs the outside right behind Arto Kekkonen, and Arto Kekkonen's a good teammate. He hits the wall and then dives into the pit lane way out of Roderick's way and causing Stuart Sandoval to slow up just a little bit. Alexis Rainsford makes a stop for fuel, and then Tom Delgado does as well. Right before everyone else, Alan Hodges in the 13 car stays out a little bit longer. However, he doesn't stay out as long as Leonid Roderick does. See Stuart Sandoval make a dive for the pits. In Roderick's rear camera here, you can see Hodges make a dive for the pit lane. And then Roderick is the last car to make a green flag pit stop, and after everything cycles out, he's still in the lead. And he has an even bigger lead than before. However, a caution tightens up the field. And ironically, Leonid Roderick causes this one himself. He comes around 2 lap cars, Chris Johans and Stuart Sandoval, and gets a little too impatient getting around him, spins himself out. He didn't really need to do that, seeing as he had a very sizable lead already. Here it is again. Stuart Sandoval scrapes the wall, Roderick gets into the back of him and spins himself out, and Chris Johans. Doesn't look like too many people are going to be happy with Roderick leaving this one. Leonid Roderick and Alan Hodges at this restart were the only two cars on the lead lap. They had actually put a lap on everyone else in the pit lane because everyone else had had episodes with the wall, and you can see how much Alan Hodges gaps the rear of the field, and there's more trouble behind Alan Hodges right there, and that is what's called caution 14, the very last caution of the race. Scott Bates is a little too eager to get around Danny Savin, spins the 91 car in front of Arto Kekkonen, then spins himself, Alexis Rainsford, and Arto Kekkonen out for good measure. Well, almost spins himself out anyway. Alexis Rainsford goes around Arto Kekkonen. However, one thing this does is it basically gives the race to Leonid Roderick on a silver platter as he takes his second win of the year here at Southern Illinois. Much to his own credit, Roderick said he wasn't too pleased with how he was driving throughout the day. Alan Hodges was second, the only other car on the lead lap. I should also point out that Alan Hodges came from 29th on the grid to finish there. Scott Bates in third, Alexis Rainsford in fourth, Tom Delgado, great top 5 for him, Anthony Evans, a great top 10 for him, Stuart Sandoval, Damian Snyder, Leon Keniston, great finish for him, and then Gary Edwards rounding out the top 10. And here are the point standings. Alan Hodges takes the points lead away from Tony Durbin, 16 markers over the American. Leonid Roderick sits in third, Alexis Rainsford up to fourth. Arto Kekkonen sits fifth. Kekkonen, he's pretty much got Rookie of the Year sewn up with his win at Karyala, but this top 5 in the points looking very good for his future. Gary Edwards in sixth, Dale Roswell drops to seventh after being one of the first cars to crash out. Rachel Rainsford in eighth, Chris Johans in 9th, and then Damian Snyder rounding out the top 10. And here is 11 through 20, Kurt Pliskin and Lewis Kingston. Then Scott Bates in the 88, Stephanie McGlynn. Drew Eisenman, how about a recovery for him? He's missed 2 races this year, and he's 15th in the championship. Round of applause for Drew, who is looking down a re-sign with this team for next season so far, at least it looks like it. Stuart Sandoval sits 16th. Mike Whitmore in 17th, however, I don't think his team will be re-signing him after today. Scott Stoyler sits 18th in the standings, Zach Duff 19th, and then Ross Peterson rounds out the top 20. That's all for this week in the TM Master Cup Series. I'll see you next time.